Thank you.
Hey guys, just a couple logistical things. So we'll start with comments from Mark and Kwesi, open up the Q&A. You can just raise your hand. Taylor and Carly will bring a mic to you. So just introduce yourself, name and outlet.
Well, yes. Hi, good morning to you. You can see where we are right now, where everyone is just starting to funnel in as the Vikings are getting set to welcome in their brand new general manager, Kwesi Adofo-Mensah. There's an excitement in the air, of course. It's a change of leadership. Everyone's looking forward to his infectious personality, but also he comes in as a guy that is known for his collaborative spirit and his communication skills, and the guy that is definitely going to bring this franchise in millennium. So as we wait, I think a lot of people are starting to get excited and trickle in, and we'll give you a little bit of background on this. So he obviously, as you've heard, well educated, went to Princeton undergrad and Stanford for his economics degree, and then when he was a commodities trader, something really changed in him. He said when he was 3 years old, he always loved football. And even though he was a basketball player, he played in the JV team at Princeton, he had this fighting spirit in addition to the fact that he was very brainy and brilliant. So he comes kind of as a dual threat that way, where he has the smarts, but he also knows that he wants to work hard every single day. And then the 49ers gave him a shot. He was in research and development there. He started off managing it and pretty soon worked his way up to director. And John Lynch there, when he left to go to Cleveland, said he was absolutely crushed that Kwesi was going to Cleveland, and not in a bad way, just that he is such an infectious, dynamic personality, and he did so much for their organization. So then he went to Cleveland, as you know, as a VP of football operations for the Browns, and in just 1 year made such an impact that he was on the fast track for the GM job. Now, he was one of 8 people that the Vikings were looking at for the general manager job, and he really shined above the rest from what everyone was saying. Now, when he was the de facto assistant general manager under Barry out with Cleveland, he really made his mark out there. So when the Wilfs were whittling down their list, he absolutely was one of the tops on the list. As we know, the final 2 candidates, Ryan Poles, who went to Chicago, and now we wait for Adofo-Mensah, and he will really start to change things around. He'll have his hands full as soon as he comes in here, as we know. Not only do they also have to find a head coach, there's a lot of issues, as we mentioned earlier in the show with Hobart Teague, that they have to work out. They have to work out some salary cap issues. What are they going to do with Kirk Cousins? So a lot of issues await him as soon as he comes in the door. But today is about celebration as he comes in, of course, for the fired Rick Spielman. And Spielman was fired, as you remember, back on January 10th after 16 seasons with the organization, 10 years with full authority over the roster. So now this will be a sweeping breath of fresh air that comes in here. And let's get back to Kwesi's infectious personality. He's known to have energy, but also his critical thinking skills. And the expertise across football operations and player personnel spectrum is what really drew the Wilfs to his dynamic personality. You bring in the education, you bring in the collaborative spirit, and being able to get along with people and reach across the aisle, so to speak, to get things done within an organization. And When you look at the background, when it came to Poles and then when it also came to Adofo-Mensah, their backgrounds were so different. Poles very much heavily on the recruiting end. Adofo-Mensah, as we know, he does not like to say analytics, but he likes to say evidence-based. And with that, we will soon lay out as Mark Wilf and the new general manager for the Minnesota Vikings head to the podium.
Good morning, everyone. Hope you're all doing well. We are thrilled to be here today to add someone of Kwesi's caliber to our organization as our new general manager. Kwesi has a presence, a unique background, and a variety of strong football experiences, which we believe are significant strengths as he assumes this role. He immediately stood out to us in his interviews because of his vision for long-term success and his comprehensive information gathering and intentional decision-making processes. He's a tremendous leader who believes in connecting people, building consensus, and having strong communication throughout the organization. All of the traits that we spoke about when we began looking for new leadership a few weeks ago. Every conversation we had with our contacts around the league led us to believe we were on the right track with Kwesi. He's widely respected and well-liked, and people strongly believe he will make an immediate positive impact and has a high ceiling for this organization, the Minnesota Vikings, to evolve and grow. Kwesi is already deeply involved in our conversations around the head coach, and we're excited about moving forward in that process. Kwesi, welcome.
Thank you. Thank you. Good morning, everybody. First, I'd like to start off by thanking Mark, Ziggy, the whole Wilf family. This whole process has been incredible. The Vikings organization, just everybody who's welcomed me. I really want to thank you for allowing me to serve you in this capacity. You know, from the moment I jumped on the interview with Mark, Ziggy, the Wilfs, Andrew Miller, Rob Brzezinski, Jamal, Ryan Munnins, and Deppner, it was just an immediate fit. It just felt right. You know, I was catching up with AB afterwards, and we were talking about things, and I was just like, man, they were so detail-oriented, so process-driven. And he's like, it sounds like you found your people. And I was like, yeah, I think it made sense, man. You know, I came down from my study. It was a Zoom. It was snowing in Cleveland, so I couldn't get to the office. And you know, I came downstairs, and I was kind of like skipping. And my fiance's she's like, what's wrong with you? You know? And I was like, I don't know. There's like energy from it. You know, I felt energized afterwards. And she joked that she went on Etsy that moment and bought a vintage Viking hat that she's wearing over there right now. So I think she knew before I did that I'd be here. Man, so much to appreciate about this organization. First and foremost, the ownership group, incredible. You know, we got the Jersey thing in common. Just good people, really passionate, love football, just incredible. The talented roster. You start preparing for these interviews, and you go over the decisions and trying to figure out what situation you can win at the highest level at, and you get excited about what you see here. The unbelievable facilities as you look around. It's you know, in the interview, I think you mentioned 3 or 4 times that they were the best, and I was kind of like, this guy's a little confident about. I had never seen them before. Then I got here, and I was like, I get it. So incredible facilities, these passionate, proud fans. It's humbling, man. I have a really close friend from here. Went to Minnesota-St. Moorhead, I believe, and he's been telling me some amazing stories about the fans here. Just how passionate they are, how loyal they are, how hardworking they are. And I really do believe that I was meant to be your general manager. I think it was just meant to be. You know, as to next steps, we're going to dive into this head coaching search and bring a partner for me in this organization that's going to lead us where we want to go. We've had some initial conversations, but those have just been initial, honestly, and we're going to dive more into it as the week goes on. At the same time as that, though, I want to get around and meet everybody. You know, when you look at the roster and you look at the success of this organization over the long term, you realize there has to be great people in this building. It's just undoubtable. You see a lot of great character players that they've drafted and kept around. You love the family environment, the atmosphere here. So I want to get around and meet everybody, know their names, where they sit, what drove them to come here, their passion for football, everything about them. Our approach to building this roster will be intentional, thoughtful, thorough, and detailed, well-planned. We know the destination. It's sustained success and championships for these great fans. We just know we know how to get there. It's just having the willingness, the wherewithal, and the confidence to make those decisions to stay on the right path. Before I open up to questions, there's a few people I want to thank. Gratitude is pretty foundational to me, and you never know how many times you're going to get to be up in front of these microphones and get a chance to thank a lot of people in your life who've meant a lot to you. First and foremost, I want to thank my mom, my superhero. Excuse me. Oof, sorry, she's incredible. Just growing up, it was always you can do anything. And practices, it didn't matter what it was. It was always, did you try your hardest? Did you practice? Did you prepare? And it was always process over results. She was the first person who taught me that. She always had this phrase, she always had this phrase, sorry, I didn't think I was going to cry. I was telling her not to cry. She always had this phrase, when something was go on in life, all I can do is work. That's all she would tell me. All I can do is work. So, when I see problems now, I kind of get this smile on my face and I think of my mom and I roll up my sleeves, and that's when I'm most comfortable. She's everything to me. My late father, he's not here today. One of the things he was best at was telling me how proud he was of me. And I know he'd be very proud if he was here today. The last thing he said to me, it's funny, we beat the Cowboys years ago, and you know how football season goes. Your contacts, your communication skills aren't great. You don't get back to people in your life. I'm trying to get better at that. I apologize to everybody I haven't responded to. My phone's been kind of nuclear warfare lately. But we were +4 that day, I think. We beat the Cowboys, and my dad left me a voicemail. And it was, it's something that I listen to all the time. He said, I'm proud of you. Your boys made a statement. And sometimes when I need a little extra, I play the voicemail because I think there's more statements to be made. And that's the work I always kind of strive towards. My fiance, just thank you for the love and support. She inspires me. It's great to have a partner to run alongside, to just, push me to be better. She's incredible. My brother and sister, love and support, advice. Man, thank you for keeping me humble even when I didn't need to be, or need to be kept humble. Sorry, you always need to be humble. The rest of my family, my friends, the family you choose, my community, you're up here with me. I thank you for allowing me to be here. I was thinking about it, how I got here. I was thinking about a conversation I had with Coach Jason Tarver, one of my good friends from my time in San Francisco. And he was talking about Coach Knapp and, the tragedy that happened this offseason. And he said, Kwesi, he's got a really intense way of talking sometimes. He said, Kwesi, he said yes to me. And I think that's so profound way to say it. At some point, somebody has to say yes to you, to your dreams, to start your dreams. And for him, that was Napper. For me, that was Parag Marate and Brian Hampton. And I'll always be indebted to them. They gave a passionate, lanky football fan a chance to live his dream. And I'll always be thankful to that. Jed York, Dr. York, always grateful. Hamp, as I've grown to manage more people, I appreciate you more. All the times you let me run in your office, ask you annoying questions when, you sometimes get in these management roles, that hour of blank space to work is just everything. And I know I probably mess that up pretty much every day. But I think you led me on my path here, and I'll always be grateful to you. And, Jordan Nolan will always have an uncle in me. As I go on in my NFL story, I'd want to also thank John Lynch, Kyle Shanahan, when they got there, they brought me in. They brought me closer. They valued my viewpoint, taught me about the game. Just incredible. I can't say thank you enough. To all the great people at the 49ers, coaches, scouts who raised me, who made me who I am, eternally grateful. And there's a couple members of the 49er family that aren't here right now that I want to thank. Reggie Cobb just meant a lot to me. Still sad that he's not here. I always hear his laugh in my heart. His, man, when I watch film, I think all the stuff he taught me. And then Paris Harrelson, who recently tragically passed. His birthday was a few days ago, so that was tough. But man, that guy's an incredible dude, and he meant a lot to my life and helped me connect with players. Just an NFL renaissance man, and so I just want to make sure I said thank you to him. Thank you to a few other great Tennesseans, the Haslams at the Browns, Jimmy D, JW, Whitney. Thank you for just allowing me to grow and flourish. To Coach Stefanski and his staff for continued education. We get to learn at the highest level in the sport, and those guys, again, elevated me to a different place. To my Browns family for welcoming me to the group and inspired me to build and be a part of a front office as great as the culture that they have. To my legends in football ops, the unsung heroes in the NFL, Tuesdays won't be the same without you. Nothing to add. That's a phrase we use a lot in our meetings. And then big thanks to Andrew Barry, my big bro. I think everybody in their life needs somebody who sees more in them than they see in themselves. And for me, that was Andrew Barry. When he brought me for that role, man, I don't know that I was like, you sure? I believe in myself, but he's always just challenged me, pushed me to step outside of my comfort zone, and he's been incredible to me, and I'm proud that he's a mentor of mine. I'll miss those late night texts about 2026 trade scenarios, but no stone unturned. That's the standard. That's what we'll live by at the Vikings, and I learned that from him. Cleveland, you have a rock star in that seat. Please appreciate him. And I just want to end with that. And I want to thank all the great players. I think when we get up in these stages, it's easy to think that you solved some great riddle or you've done something incredible. But it's always about the players. I've been fortunate to be around some great ones, and I'm up here because of them. And I could name them all day, and I've probably been talking a little bit long right now, so I won't. But they know who they are, and I've gotten the text, and I always appreciate you guys. Thank you again, and I'm incredibly excited to be here.
Welcome, Kwesi, and to Minnesota, and congratulations. Joe Schmidt from Channel 5. The decisions you make here in the next few weeks are going to impact this franchise for a decade. Your background's a little bit different than most general managers. Why do you think why are you so confident that you're the right person for this job?
Sure. Yeah, I know my background's unique, but when you think about this job, the job is about making decisions, building consensus in the building, combining different sources of information into one answer, and having everybody behind it. And along those lines, I don't think there's many people more qualified than I am. Just my background on Wall Street, having the emotional stability to make those decisions at a high level, be accountable to yourself, and kind of learning and growing from that standpoint, that's an education that I'll never fully appreciate. And then really in my experience in the NFL, I've learned from some great teachers. I went in not thinking I knew anything, and I think a lot of times an impediment to learning is trying to affirm what you already think, or just just not really being just open-hearted, open-minded about learning. And I approach it. If I'm going to be around great ones, I'm just going to listen to everything they say. And so I built a really strong foundation through that, and an ability to really be in every room, talk to every person, really communicate in their language. And that's what gives me the faith and confidence to make those decisions that you talked about.
Hi, Kwesi. Chris Thomason, St. Paul Pioneer Press. Welcome to Minnesota.
Thank you.
Might as well jump right in with the coaching search. 8 candidates have been virtually interviewed so far. Hackett's going to Denver, so it's down to 7. You think the coach comes from one of those 7? Will the field be expanded? How are you looking at the coaching search? And then what's your timetable to hopefully name a head coach?
Sure. We've had some initial discussions, as I mentioned in my opening remarks. We know that what we want to find. We want leadership. We want somebody who's going to bring rally the collective over the individual. We want somebody who's got vision, who can communicate, who's got a solid football foundation, who understands how football's interconnected and what that means. So that's been our focus in these last few days, really honing in on what we want. In terms of specific names, we're going to meet after this, after I get done with you great people, and we'll talk about that further.
Jim Suhan, Star Tribune, congratulations.
Thank you.
The Wilfs have talked a lot about collaboration. You're new to the building. How do you see that playing out? Do you think the decision for the coach is made by consensus, or do you make the decision and bring it to them?
Sure. I mean, if you know me, whether I say I make the decision or not, it's going to be a collaborative process. I'm always about different viewpoints, different ideas, not to be all algorithms or life, but you find that the best decision-making engines combine information that isn't related to each other, but related to the thing you're trying to find. So what it's really saying is you want information that covers the blind spots of the other things, right? So that's a core belief of mine, and so any decision-making room I'm in, I'm always seeking the other opinion, trying to put everything together, and then come out on the other end.
Hi, Kwesi. Courtney Cronin, ESPN.com. Analytics is this big buzzword surrounding you as a candidate. What does it mean to you and your perspective from like a football side of things, and how does that factor into like the evaluation and scouting element of what your job entails?
Sorry, I started laughing because I remember when John and Kyle came to San Francisco, we had a meeting where everybody goes around the room and introduce themselves, and I took that opportunity to stand up and say I don't know what analytics is, and I might have laid an expletive in there so I could be extra football guy, and for me, it's about being thoughtful and intentional. I don't think that's a new thing. I think that word has become really about who's doing the work, not what is being done. If you think about the great ones that I've studied, that everybody, in the NFL has studied, I used to have a picture of Bill Walsh right above my desk. So in case I thought I was, figuring out the world, that I would just humble myself and look at him. But, it's about asking why, trying to figure out what you're doing. And sometimes that involves, quantitative research. Sometimes that involves just talking to people about experience, using their intuition. It varies, but at the end of the day, the core thing is learning, trying to figure out why, and then using that why to make better decisions with intent and just a detailed focus. So that's really what it means to me. I can't speak for other people when they use that word.
Kwesi, welcome to Minnesota. Lindsay Young here with Vikings Entertainment Network. I know that you mentioned high character players that are in the building, and I know that the Wilfs have really emphasized having high character and having this strong culture. I guess I'm just wondering, in your words, kind of what do you think builds that strong culture, and what are you looking to expand on here?
I'm sorry, I missed the last part of that question.
Just what are you looking to expand on here within the culture that has been built?
Sure. I mean, I think first and foremost, I'm the new person in the culture, so I want to make sure I learn what it is to its full detail. So that starts with having conversations with players. Right after you guys let me go, I'm going to start calling them and really learning about what makes them proud to be a Minnesota Viking. I'm going to talk with other members of the front office, this organization, and really learn what this culture is from then, and then also ask them what they want it to be. And then really it's just connecting those two things and figuring out where do you go from there.
Hey, Kwesi, Chad Graff with The Athletic. I think I read in San Francisco one of your first tasks was to conduct a study looking at what successful organizations, especially in sports, did well. I guess what did you learn from doing that study?
Sure. To that point, I got hired to be the quant person, right? So you're thinking you're going to build these great models that are going to change the world or whatever. And, you learn after studying those great organizations that it's about so much more than that. That word culture gets thrown around a lot, but it's so critical. Alignment. And alignment doesn't mean having the same mind or thinking the same, but just general core beliefs, ways of solving problems, a constructive attitude towards mistakes. Those things really matter. And then I would say the other key thing is suppression of ego. I think a lot of times what gets in the way of the collective is people's individual, goals or needs for validation. And if you can avoid that at a high level, you can really get everybody going in the same direction, and that's what I hope to have here.
Hi, Kwesi. Mark Craig from the Star Tribune. Congratulations.
Thank you.
You said you don't know what the analytics is. I really don't know what analytics is. I mean, it's obviously become the catchphrase and everything. How do you define it? I know you talked a little bit about it, but everybody wants to always have some sort of, group think and everything. But how do you define it when you're analyzing players? What analytics is, and how does that compare to a more traditional, a football guy that comes up as a scout and then he works his way up that way?
Sure. I mean, both of those things are information, right? So somebody watches a game, a player, right? They're making high-level assumptions and observations about what that player is doing. Now, humans are really great at that higher-order complex thinking. And so a lot of times that gift becomes a curse in a sense because you sometimes will miss the simple thing. So analytics or just simple observations allows you to write those simple observations down as data and be able to go back later and study them historically. Very simply, you can go back and say, hey, is there any information that would have helped us make this decision better in the past in a simple manner? But that's the same thing that a scout watches and does with his process. He goes and says, hey, of all the great players that have come in the league that I observed before, what worked? What went and said, what predicted the right thing? And as I said, it's combining both. You appreciate that they're different. You want one to cover the other in terms of blind spots. So really, it's just that combined approach, and they honestly are the same thing. They're just two different avenues to get there.
Kwesi, Dave Campbell with AP. When it comes to talking to players that you're going to do here in a few minutes, listening to them, talking to them about their roles, their future, their status. What have you learned sort of about the art of that communication? What works and what doesn't work?
Sure. The first exposure I got to players is in San Francisco. Actually, I began teaching financial literacy to them, and so I really got close with them and connected with a lot of those guys. And what you learn is they're great dudes. They just really happen to be really great at football. And so I learned that you can do this, be in this chair, do these things, just be human. Be straight up with them, be genuine, and that's how I'm going to be. I'm going to be myself. I don't really know how to be anything else, and so that's kind of what drives me. And I've done some of these decisions with these things before. Andrew Barry pushed me to do those things. He's like, I don't want the first time you have that conversation to be as a GM. Again, he's been so great to me and pushing me in that way. So that's what makes me think I'll be fine in that role.
Kwesi, Ben Gessling from the Minneapolis-St Tribune. Welcome to Minnesota. Rick Spielman, of course, had full control over the 53-man roster when he was here in the past. Will you have those same level of control as part of your contract, as part of your responsibility in Minnesota?
I have respect where that question's coming from. I always say that with a coach that I would work with, I would work for, if that makes sense. It's somebody that I would want to partner with. I wouldn't care about that distinction because they understand enough about personnel and about living in today and living in tomorrow that, it would make us a great partnership. So, I guess I know what the specifics of my contract say, but I don't really think it matters to speak in this forum.
Because Mike Max, WCCO, you talk about talking to the players. You got a lot of veterans on this team with a lot of opinions.
Sure.
Do you ask them what they want to see in a coach, or do you hire a coach and say, this is what the coach looks like, gentlemen, get in line?
No, when you get to a culture, you want to first see what it is and see what people think and see where they want to grow. So again, when I get off with you guys, that's the first thing I'm going to do is go talk to the leadership council and see what they have to say. Again, I'm a consensus builder. I love information, so nothing they say is going to shock me or be anything negative. I'm going to take it into consideration. We have, again, general thoughts and what we want, but hearing from players is not going to hurt that, and I look forward to having that dialogue with them.
I actually have a question for Mark. Kwesi would be termed maybe as an outside-of-the-box hire compared to other people, traditional NFL paths. Was that something that the Vikings search committee looked at right away and that you wanted, or was that something that just sort of evolved during the interview process?
Well, like I said at the outset, we wanted to cast the net wide, and we really feel we interviewed and scoured the entire landscape of what's possible for a general manager position. So kudos to Andrew Miller and Rob and Ann and Jamal and Ryan. We really scoured the landscape to find what we wanted to find. We didn't have any preconceived notion, but the fact is Kwesi represents great leadership, incredibly bright. He's a progressive thinker, and as he just outlined, he spent incredibly strong time time with Cleveland and San Francisco, and he's really, as he has said, driven to gather as much information as possible to get a process to get us to where we want to go and to really get our team in the right direction. So all of that really combined to make him a clear, great choice, and we're very pleased.
Kwesi, Norman C. Wright from WCCO, congratulations. Given everything we've spoken about to this point, collaboration, communication, leadership, what do you want it to feel like for the roster, for staff that come to work every day as you have conversations with them?
Sure. I think they already have a lot of it. You get in this building for 1 minute, you see the family atmosphere. And I think that's something that's incredible and something that I'm so happy to join. I want a place where everybody feels supported and validated enough to speak their mind, give their opinion. We're going to be open-minded, constructive with our dialogue and discussion here. And again, I think as long as you have a process and really understanding that the intent of the other person who's saying something that you might not agree with is still pure, you can sit and have that discussion and go from there. So, those are things that I think they have a lot of that building, and I hope to add as I'm here.
Kwesi, welcome. Dawn Mitchell, Fox 9. How are you? You had mentioned when you played basketball that many people saw you as the smart guy, so they immediately saw you as the brilliant starter player, but you classified yourself as the end-of-the-bench try-hard guy, if I am quoting you correctly.
Yeah.
How has that duality, where you have the brilliant mind, but you also have that I have to fight and work hard every day, how has that helped you to be sitting where you are right now?
I don't know that I have a brilliant mind. I don't know that I would describe myself as that. I don't win many arguments with those two over there, so I might not be that brilliant. But, I think the funny thing, the basketball story is interesting. I was a little guy in high school. I got cut from the basketball team my sophomore year. And, when you're 15, everything throws you into this tailspin. It's the worst thing that ever happened to you in your life. And I struggled for a year there. My mom would probably, tell you that story. But I remember looking in the mirror one day, and it was a tough circumstance in terms of how it happened. And I remember looking in that mirror that day and said, focusing on what you can't control doesn't matter. It kind of drove me crazy. And I was like, at the end of the day, it's on me. And I think that's where some of that chip on the shoulder comes from, that drive. Then I was fortunate enough to grow, 7 inches my freshman year of college, and decided to give the hoop dreams a try again. And I was came on the JV team and did that whole thing, and that was incredible. But yeah, to your point, I think that is just in me. I think as you get older, it's less about revenge or anything like that. It's the joy of the journey. It's me versus myself, me for myself. It's just that growth mindset, that improvement. It's just you'll see it about me. I enjoy it. I love pushing myself to get better. I think a lot of that comes from trading, where a lot of times you see at the end of the day there's a scorecard, and it might be bad, and that's okay, because that gives you a reason to get better at the end of the day.
Kwesi right here. Andy Mack, Care 11, welcome to Minnesota. You talked about the Wall Street, and obviously that's going to get a lot of talk. How does that help you in this facet? And also, was there a moment, because obviously getting to Wall Street is something incredible as well, was there a moment that clicked that says, I want to get into the NFL because it's a different world?
Yeah, completely. It is and it isn't. I would say what I learned from Wall Street, and look, a lot of the things that happen on Wall Street happen in the NFL. There's a market, there's players, there's prices. A lot of those things aren't any different. What you learn is the emotional just stability to leave at the end of the day when it didn't go well and go say hi to your friends and be a normal person and show up the next day and try and get better. And just that you'll see me watching a game. I was talking to Mark about this. I don't really get that high. I don't really get that low. I'm just kind of even, which can annoy people, bad calls, whatever. That's just how I'm wired from those experiences. And at the end of the day, I think that's the most important thing that I take from there. It really isn't that different, though. It's just a different canvas, but the same art, I would say.
Hi, Kwesi. Will Raggets, SI.com. Congratulations. I'm just curious, what were some of the most impactful things that you did or you learned over the past 2 years in Cleveland, kind of expanding your role from
where you were with the Niners that helped prepare you for this job?
Sure. Yeah. Again, thanks to Andrew Berry for pushing me. Really, it was just it's a boot camp in scouting. You know, I think in San Francisco, I was in those draft meetings. I was watching. I was listening to the coaches, but I wasn't responsible for doing those things myself. And now I'm asked to be, you know, in those meetings. And Andrew wouldn't let me fall back on my, you know, my skill set, right? Nope, you're going to watch the players, you're going to write reports, doing all those things. And what I loved about that was you get to do it your way. He's always like, hey, listen to everybody else, but take what they teach you and apply it the way that somebody that is like you would apply it. And so I've come up with some great things. Again, it's probably my favorite part of my NFL experience and kind of learning and something that I didn't know, which is my favorite thing. And so that was really the big expansion. And then obviously overseeing a lot of departments in football operations, like I mentioned earlier. You know, I think people underestimate when you're earlier in your career, you just have time, you know, time to do what you want. And then all of a sudden, you know, your day is just cut up. It's taken from you. You know, sometimes at 7 p.m. you get to sit back and breathe and do work. But that was a great dynamic to learn from, just being able to be compartmentalized at times, but also be able to switch gears and focus and do things. So yeah, it's really just preparing me for this role. Ultimately, that was the big step up when I got to Cleveland.
Kwesi, I think Michael Jordan got cut as well, so you're in good company.
He was I think he was varsity at JV. I got sent home, canceled Christmas.
Okay.
Really sent home.
So you don't have a list of grudges like
you know, at the time I probably did, but that's not me anymore.
Ryan Poles was scheduled to come here and interview the day you got hired. I was wondering if you know, if you see that. Obviously, you're in the same division, a lot of competition, but he's more of a traditional football guy. He's young like you, you know. But I wondered if there was an extra level of competition that comes with these two hires a day apart. One guy was coming here to interview. How you see that? How do you view that?
If you know me, there's no extra need for competition. That's how I'm wired. So, you know, if he was hired there, and I've heard great things about him, I think he'll do a great job there. But our job here is to win divisions, make the playoffs, and pursue championships, and that wouldn't change if he was hired there or not.
Hey, Kwesi, Sam Ekstrom with Purple Insider. You mentioned earlier the people that first said yes to you. I'm curious how that initial connection came together that got you in the door at San Francisco, and then what was that crash course like, you know, being in a front office or an organization for the first time?
Sure, you talk about life being, you know, so full circle. And I think I missed this when you asked the question. I was at Stanford to become an econ professor. You know, I was going to go wear a tweed jacket and glasses and teach students. And I still had a lot of decision making left in me. I wanted to be a part of it in a practical sense. You know, we have these three in PhD programs. You have these 3 6-hour tests called comprehensives, I think they were called. And you know, the macro on macroeconomics was never my strength. It didn't go so well. So, you know, you kind of have this decision: do you want to, you know, petition to stay or not? And I was kind of in a position where, like, I didn't really want to stay, and I was really interested in getting into sports. I went to the MIT Sports Analytics Conference, and funny enough, a guy named Daniel Adler, who's actually with the Minnesota Twins, he connected me with Brian Hampton, and so you think about life being so, you know, full circle, but that's how the meeting went, and we talked, hit it off. You know, Brian will tell you he knew the second he met me that I would be here, but he waited a little while before he called me for that job, so I give him a little stuff for that still, but yeah, that's how I got here.
Good morning. Welcome to the Minnesota Vikings. Larry Fitzgerald, National Programming Network, Larry-Fitzgerald.com. You touched on your time in San Francisco and Bill Walsh. As we know, the 49ers had never won a championship until Bill Walsh got there. What did you learn about the inner workings of the 49ers and what he established and built that they continue today that you will apply to what you hope to bring to the Minnesota Vikings?
You know, that phrase I used earlier, thoughtful and intentional, that's kind of what I got from Bill Walsh. I don't think there's been anybody in the history of the sport that was more thoughtful and intentional than him. To the detail that he planned practice and what he was trying to get out of it. Every letter of that organization had a reason why. And so, you know, in our interviews, I spoke a lot about that's how I'm wired, that's who I am. I don't think you change for the sake of change, but I think you ask why a lot. And I think that permeates that building still to this day. I think, you know, football philosophy-wise, he was, you know, he knew that you couldn't just line up and expect to win every week. And so he created a system that gave his players the best chance to win. And ultimately, there's lots of ways to do that. And as we get into the coaching search, we'll discuss those things. But, you know, there's a way to give your players an advantage week in, week out, year in and year out. There's a way to be process-driven and process-oriented to kind of figure out how to evolve. And that's the type of thing we're looking for, and that's the type of thing that, you know, Coach Walsh instilled upon me.
Thank you.